The birth of a future king. On this day, in 1682, a hurricane wind blew through Stockholm, tearing the roofs off houses. The sky was an unusual crimson color, and in the east, the Lionheart star lit up. In 1686, young Charles attended a parade of the Smolensk Cavalry Regiment, and he was thrilled by the thunderous hooves and the giants of Smolensk. It was here that he first boldly mounted an officer's pony, impressing all those present. In 1695, after demonstrating impressive academic progress, especially in mastering languages, French in particular, Charles showed his stubbornness by refusing to speak to the French ambassador in his native tongue. In 1699, a beautiful courtesan, Athalie de Monte, was noticed in the young king's bed. She would later carry out many secret and not always noble missions for Charles XII. In 1700, Charles accepted the challenge of the Danish king, who sought to seize southern Sweden from the young Swedish monarch. Charles swiftly landed his troops near Copenhagen and laid siege to the city. Terrified, the Danish king quickly capitulated. In 1700, the Swedish lion cub, as he was then called, in difficult autumn storm conditions, moved his army to Tallinn. Sparing neither himself nor his soldiers, he marched swiftly toward the fortress of Narva, besieged by the Russian Tsar. In 1700, 12,000 Swedes, in a brutal winter battle, nearly annihilated a 40,000-strong Russian army created through the titanic efforts of Tsar Peter. The name of the Swedish king was now known throughout Europe. In 1701, Charles defeated the army of the Polish Saxon king Augustus, which included Russian regiments, near Riga. The glory of the Swedish king, which he so craved, reached its peak. In 1702, Charles's Swedish army defeated the Polish-Saxon army of King Augustus at Klistov. The Polish king fled beyond Poland's borders. In 1704, Charles led his army on a 500-kilometer march in just 9 days, setting an absolute record for that time. In 1706, the king's knightly image was greatly tarnished when he approved the brutal and inhumane massacre of Russian prisoners after the battle in Saxony, despite their pleas for mercy. The Swedish soldiers slaughtered them like cattle in a slaughterhouse. In 1707, the number of Swedish army victories under Charles reached 20. However, at the same time, the king confided to his close companions that for the 5th year he couldn't escape, as he put it, the Polish swamp. In 1708, during one of the battles in Charles XII's Russian campaign, he almost died twice. The first time, he was surrounded by Russian dragoons, from whom he was rescued by his royal reiters. The second time, his horse got stuck in a bog, nearly drowning the king along with it. In 1709, near the city of Poltava in Ukraine, the king was seriously wounded in the leg, the second of 5 wounds he would receive in his lifetime. In 1709, Charles suffered catastrophic defeats at Poltava, and during his army's retreat across the Dnieper River, heading toward the Ottoman Empire. After these losses, Charles became even more stubborn and irrational. In 1710, Charles contemptuously rejected an offer from the great powers of Europe to make peace with Russia, Denmark, and Poland, which would have guaranteed Sweden's territorial holdings in Finland and Germany. In 1713, the king barricaded himself inside a house in Bender, defying the Sultan's order to leave the Ottoman Empire. The Bender Pasha, along with Tatars and Janissaries, began an assault. Charles armed even his cooks, and, sword in hand, tried to break through. After a bloody battle, the Janissaries, impressed by the king's courage and stubbornness, respectfully nicknamed him Iron Head. In 1714, after receiving one last gift from the Turkish Sultan, abundant treasures and 100 kilograms of gold in coins, Charles departed for Sweden, leaving behind a legend of his mad and brave personality among the Turks. He returned to a homeland ruined by a long war. In 1716, in Norway, during a night attack by the Danes, Charles defended the gate of his camp, killing 5 enemy soldiers. This brought his personal kill count of enemy soldiers to at least 50. In 1718, the Viking king was killed by a stray bullet in Norway during the siege of the fortress of Fredriksten, becoming the last European monarch to fall in battle.